And that's the topic actually that we're talking about today. Dave Mann joining us from the Hope Project. Dave, kia ora. Good morning. Thanks for joining us.
Hey, kia ora, Andrew.
The opportunity of churches to gather together, to pray in unity for their communities. This is transformational, not just for the communities, but also for the individuals, for the churches involved.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, prayer is really important. And I think we should never underestimate prayer,
Yeah.
The importance of it. But I'd say that prayer isn't a goal in itself.
Mm-hmm.
Prayer is a starting line from which we say, Lord, how could we engage more? We ask for God's favor.
Yeah.
And the real goal is what we then do together. But yeah, we hopefully pray in our families, we pray in our homes, we pray in our churches, but there's a place for united prayer, and it's really important.
I think just as an excuse and opportunity to get together, because yes, there are differences in styles of liturgy. There's differences in theology between denominations, and to be fair, there's different prayer styles. But I suppose that's something that we have in common as the church community. We all believe in God. We all believe that that God answers prayer.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think what Open Heaven's doing is fantastic. Right across New Zealand, for those who live in the bigger cities,
Yep.
For awareness. In the smaller cities and in the towns, combined prayer gatherings are quite common. Combined church services often happen on the fifth Sunday of the month. There's a tradition that's been happening for decades in New Zealand.
Mm-hmm.
For a bigger city, though, I mean, how on earth do you have a combined church prayer gathering in Auckland, man? The place is enormous.
Exactly.
Look,
I think one of the things they've been doing with Open Heaven is basically they rent the biggest venue they can find,
yes.
and then pass a hat around to try and cover the expenses of it. But hey, the size of the venue depends on the size of the community. It doesn't have to necessarily, I mean, there is huge value in corporate prayer, but as you mentioned, just gathering together in small groups, people faithfully connecting together and finding opportunities to engage with God as they look for opportunities to engage in community. Because I think that's the important step. Because it can be easy to, I suppose, to say, God, we've got all these problems, please fix all of our problems. But so much better to recognise that perhaps we are the answers to other people's prayers. We may even be the answers to our own prayers in terms of how we can engage with the community and make a difference.
Well, see, the question could be, why do we even need to gather and pray together?
Mm-hmm.
Now, let's say you and I never met together. It doesn't mean we're not in unity.
Mm-hmm.
So coming together also doesn't mean we're in unity. We could have coffee and smile and still not like each other.
Yeah.
So the fact that everyone comes together doesn't say we're in unity, but it could be a reflection of it.
Yeah.
But what are we actually trying to achieve? Because we could all pray in our homes. We could all pray together.
Mm-hmm.
I think when we pray together for something, what it actually is prayer's two-way communication. God then begins to imprint something on our heart. Instead of praying just for my local church, I'm now praying for the city. So I look with different eyes. And then I say, well, God, what are the needs of my city? And then God begins to imprint vision and faith in the hearts of people who are present to actually do something for their city. And this is where I'd say, like, the combined prayer, like Open Heaven's facilitating, as also to recognise what churches do, which exists separate to that also in smaller cities and towns nationally.
Yeah.
Even Hope Project, praying along every street. These are great. How about this as a vision, though? I think this is the number one prayer goal we could ever have for mission, a prayer meeting in every workplace and school.
Wow.
And again, what it's about is that we're not just praying, God, bless this workplace. I'm a teacher in a school with 60 teachers and there's 3 Christians. How could we not meet 7:30 a.m. once a week with a coffee to pray? But the question is, well, God, what would you then have us do? And because it's two-way communication, we're now looking specifically at the school as 3 Christians from different churches to say, God, how can we serve you in our sphere of influence and interest to make a difference? And if you can imagine Auckland where you live, there's probably 80,000 Christians. Imagine them united in 500 prayer meetings in workplaces and schools.
Yep.
Where I live, there's about 20,000 Christians in Tauranga. Imagine them united in each school and in each workplace as students and as adults. It would be transformational. So prayer is vital, but it's not just one way. It's not a goal in itself. It's a starting line. God, give us vision. God, help us see. Give us favor. Show us how we could engage.
That is absolutely fantastic. And hey, fortunately, from our perspective, prayer in the workplace here at Rhema Media, of course, is something which happens on a regular basis. I'm sure it's the same for the Hope Project team. You mentioned just briefly prayer walking. Now, this is, one of the... For me personally, I've been involved with Hope Project for a few years now, but one of the most personally rewarding aspects of the Hope Project, yes, I think the booklets are great. I think they deliver a wonderful message. It's fantastic to have churches communicating hope into their neighbourhoods. But engaging with people who perhaps, I don't know, they might not have the confidence to be a street corner evangelist or anything like that, but they do have the confidence to want to be able to pray a blessing on the people who live in the communities that they live. And just taking those simple steps, or literal steps really, of walking around that neighbourhood, adopting that neighbourhood, yes, praying while the booklets are delivered, but in so many cases just taking on a heart for regular prayer for their neighbours, for that neighbourhood. Yes, praying in schools, praying in workplaces, but just praying silently in your head as you're walking around your own town or subdivision. I mean, again, powerful spiritual changes.
Yeah, I mean, two thoughts come to mind. First of all, where we pray affects what we pray for.
Yes.
When I pray in my home, I naturally pray for my family. Mm-hmm. When I pray at my office, I naturally pray for the work of the Shining Lights Trust and the unity of churches. Yeah. And so we often get feedback that as people deliver the booklets, which gets the gospel to homes, and as they pray, they begin to see their community in a new light. And that can catalyze fresh vision for what can my church do for this community? Mm-hmm. Oh, I never realized that there was this, this, and this within my own community. But the other dynamic, the moment we're talking about prayer, we're naturally talking about what some would call the mystical or the spiritual. Yeah. There are spiritual environments. And I can tell you without giving any names of places, the different cities and towns of this nation have different spiritual dynamics to them. Mm-hmm. Hope Project's coordination in one city can be easy because there's just a spirit of unity and favor. In another place, it can be difficult because the churches struggle to get somehow to actually coordinate anything together and to see the vision. And so this is like the spiritual warfare that we can't see as Christians, but which the Bible tells us is a very real thing. When we walk around a place, sometimes God's Spirit will speak to our heart and we'll realize actually there could be a dark spiritual presence over that place, which actually is affecting people's ability to see what's true and real and to have faith in God. We walk through and we're saying, God, bring the light here. Dispel the darkness. If there's been sin in this land, we're asking for your grace and your forgiveness to deal with that sin so your favor can come here, so the people living upon this land can experience and know your favor. And it sounds mystical and strange to talk about, but all I can say, I've got many stories, we don't have the time. Yeah. This is also real. And the results, the engagement with the gospel can be greatly affected by the spiritual environment, which is the product of both our prayers, but also our prayers in action. We go to do. That is a faith step as much as praying a prayer is. And God hears the prayer.
That is so good. And there was something which was, I think, in vogue back in the 90s, something called spiritual mapping, where you look at a community and you look for what may be positive spiritual influences and maybe some negative ones as well. And you create a specific spiritual map and you pray into those things as well. And honestly, I find this prayer walking with the Hope Project booklets as well, that if as you're walking the streets, again, this isn't a one-way conversation, that you ask God to show you, to reveal in your spirit, perhaps things in the neighborhood or in the community that need extra attention or prayer, or perhaps an opportunity for a ministry in that particular area, then seriously, some spiritual work with prayer can have some transformational difference in our towns. And hey, it all starts delivering Hope Projects around the streets, right?
Well, it can do. Volunteers are needed all over the country and online, altogether.co.nz/volunteer. People can. I'd just say that prayer and action have to go together, and that's the key. And I've been involved in prayer for places. I remember even at high school, we had a transformation in the behavior of students and of all the bad things kids did through prayer. A full Saturday of students praying, and we felt the spiritual environment shift. But the thing is that we were too naive, as I think many of us can be at times, no insult to anyone intended, to realize that if we shift the spiritual environment, we then have to go.
Yes.
We then have to find a way to take the gospel or the message of hope out to connect with people. Because if a spiritual darkness or heaviness has lifted, we now have an opportunity. It's not about praying to break the darkness. It's about what we're going to do when the darkness is broken. And so this is simply to say again that prayer and effort go together. Prayer isn't a goal. Prayer isn't an end goal. We all pray in unity, whip-de-doo. The question is, have we caught a vision from that for what God would have us do in our community, and are we then doing it? And that's where I'd say the impact comes, prayer and action together.
Hey, fantastic stuff, Dave. Very much appreciate your ministry and encouraging people to get involved with Hope Project deliveries or prayer and action in their local community. Thanks so much for joining us, Dave.
Cheers, Andrew.
Hey, thanks very much for joining us in the Rhema studio. Thanks very much for watching the interview. It's kind of nice to have an audience, actually. And if you did like what you watched, then do give us a like, do give us the thumbs up. And if you'd like to see more interviews like that one, or perhaps even better, subscribe and those interviews will come straight to you. Don't forget to turn on your notifications, and we'll see you in the next one. Cheers.